Your gang. Just starting the conference here. It's coming up soon. Relax. Thanks, Jerry Wicklow. All the bodies are here. It's filling up rapidly on the thing, and I'm at the very front of this. So what I'm going to do is leave you there. And oh, good man. There's plenty of people watching. Yeah, but I'm going to leave you here. The show is going to start in about 10 or 15 minutes. Get a cup of tea. I'll be back soon. I'm going to drink water myself. Chill out. Back. This cast, look at all the faces and names, my god. So many people already. Are you streaming live as well, Stephen? Stephen's here. I'm streaming live on the YouTube channel as well. You can see it, is it working? Can you hear it? Can you hear it though?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. This is good. I'm checking with the audience. Can we hear it now? There's a big audience here. Right, I gotta go. But I'll be back in a minute. We start talking, okay? Everybody able to hear everything, yeah? Nice. This is good. Okay, be back in a minute.
I was trying down those names.
Yes. Yeah. Agree. What's the point? No, that's fair.
We're going to get going in a minute. There's still people coming in, and it's nearly full, so we're going to get started. Have we got any questions that I need to answer really quickly before anybody gets going here? Mrs. Doyle wants a cup of tea while I'm waiting. Yeah, Mrs. Doyle, I'm with you. You're cool. Which one of you bought a pint? No pints yet. Can't be having pints until after this. I need a drink of water. I need a drink of whiskey. It'd be nice as well. Hendrix and tonic for Liam Cotter. I'll check back in a few minutes now. Don't worry, we're coming. Good God, how many people watch already? That's not on tweet, Instagram. So there's a room. Unaware. Tesla Ireland. DM me directly. I added you, Eco Car, Paul Flavin, and road trip to at a supercharger. 2 minutes ago, they were at a supercharger. That's live, by the way.
Very good.
You're live on screen.
Excellent.
This is Joyce. She's the boss of Eco Cars.
Howdy.
There's a mic. You want a mic?
I'll be using Stop. Very good.
Yeah, I might just okay?
Yeah.
No.
That's it here, let me come
Right boys, we're going to get going now. The audio is going to change, alright? Because I have to use this mic here. Andy McAfee is in the house, weren't you here? Tesla Ireland's coming as well. This is what I expected when I clicked the stream. Sorry DBM Gaming, we will do something very soon. I'm going to be live on the mic in a minute. You'll be grand.
So we'll make a start. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you all here today on behalf of EcoCars, and we're delighted to see so many of you here today. Today is about information. We hope at the end of this seminar that you will have all of the information that you need to assist you in knowing if an electric vehicle is for you. We'll shortly have our guest speaker on stage. We'll then take a break and we'll have our panel discussion. So we've a lot to get through today, folks, and we've given you all a question card. If you fill it out, we'll get to the questions. We get to the questions during our panel discussion. And so, folks, without further ado, would you welcome to the stage from the next speaker, Mr. Bob Flavin.
Hopefully this mic is working. Yes, it is. That's good. Now, in case I was wondering, this is a live stream on YouTube, so if you want to watch this in stereo, you can watch it on YouTube as well. It's going out live. So the team that's behind all of that sort of stuff is me. That's pretty much it. My name is Bob Flavin. I've been a motoring journalist for the last decade in this country. So I've travelled the world driving pretty much every single car that is available on the market, including all the electric ones. The idea that I can stand up here came from Joyce and the team at EcoCars, who had the bravery to put someone up here who is no interest in electric cars. And what I mean by that is, I don't sell them, I don't care if you buy one, I don't sell boxes, I don't sell accoutrements. You can't sponsor this site to make me say electric cars are good or bad or indifferent. There's no advertising from car companies allowed on my website or on the YouTube channel, so it's pretty as independent as I can possibly make it. But I am a sole trader, so I'm not backed by a big media organisation. Even though I do write sometimes for the Independent, there's Times, the Star, I feature on radio and television, other bits, but it's always as a sort of an independent person. What isn't independent right now is the conversation around electric cars. Generally speaking, most of these information nights are done by people like Nissan or done by Renault or whatever. They have a night in a dealership where they're trying to sell you a car as well as informing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the information, but they're giving you a naturally biased information as they try and sell you something what you're getting. Currently in Ireland, there's very few electric cars for sale. If you actually think about how many are there, you've got Kia and Hyundai, who between them sell 4 cars that are pure electric. And then after that, you've got Volkswagen, who are kind of coming with the ID3, but they've only got the e-Golf that's there as well. So you have, after that, it's kind of like PHEVs that dominate. You've got Renault in there too with the Zoe and other ones. So they're popular ones, and Nissan and Leaf. They're the kind of popular ones, but the rest of them are just on the way. They're like imaginary stuff that's not quite here yet. We have some detail behind it, but realistically that detail seems to be changing week to week. So currently, the Irish market of electric cars represents about 2.5 to 2.8% of sales overall. We don't have the 30-day figures for this month, so I can't tell you how things are going right now. But listen to what dealers are saying, or listen to what the industry is saying, it's going to be down. It'll be down overall as car sales go. We'll see if the electric cars will rise. I think they'll rise naturally. The problem is right now supply. Trying to get enough electric cars for everybody that's in there. So that's the Irish market. Globally, you've got a problem. You've got a problem with batteries, you've got a problem with where the batteries are coming from, who's manufacturing batteries, how people are getting them. The industry is struggling to lay their hands on enough batteries to make enough cars to suit demand. You got companies like Tesla, who's at the very top end of the market, really. The prices they charge for cars is quite high, but they're at the top end. Now, they've never manufactured an internal combustion engine. So they've only ever manufactured electric, so they've only got one road to go. So that's easy for them to sit back and go, well, you know, we'll get electric cars when we get them. So you can wait for them. You know you're going to have to wait for Tesla. They're pretty open about it. That's a good thing. Most other car companies are not open about it. They want to keep that idea that there is going to be electric cars coming, wait for them, like Volkswagen are doing right now. The ID3 has been pushed back again. Audi did it too with the e-tron. They brought it out, then took it off, then they brought it back. Peugeot are about to enter the game very soon, but they have a problem as well. Peugeot E208 is on the way, and you'll find that Opel are bringing out the same version of that as well. Citroen will bring out another version of that, so it'll be 3 of those, will be the same thing. But that's 3 batteries per company. So batteries is the big problem, and the electric engine is also a problem. Most of the engines are not made by the car company, they're made by a company that supplied the car company. So another supplier now involved in the chain where we used to make just diesel engines in a factory or petrol engines in a factory. That factory was owned by Volkswagen or owned by Volvo, whatever it is. Now they're buying in the parts to make it, so its supply chain is longer. So you're going to have a little bit of a wait list. I was talking to some folks earlier on out the front who are currently waiting for delivery. They're also waiting for the grants to come through for everything. They're also waiting for delivery of the car. You know, everything is kind of waiting for it to happen. If this was 100 years ago, it would be called the Industrial Revolution, because we're in the energy revolution. We are changing how we use power, what we use it for, and where we're getting it from. All of that is altering right before your eyes. You are in the middle of it right this minute. From everything from solar panels on your roof to charge batteries to charge cars. Might not work. It works in Spain, it works in Portugal. Probably won't be much of an effect here in Ireland. Even today we're only going to get maybe 6 hours of daylight, and it's only really daylight. Today was a good sunlight day, but unless the solar panels are fully charged up, you're going to get very little out of it. So Ireland's not terribly suitable for solar. During the summer, maybe. During the winter months, nah, not much. Maybe 4 hours of just pure grey daylight. So, but that doesn't mean we're not at the races here. Ireland is a very unique country. We have such a small little perfect island for electric cars. It's very easy to cross this country. Going from Dublin to Galway on a single charge, and pretty much anything from 2017 or 2018 on should be fairly straightforward. Infrastructure, I'll come to in a few minutes, that's a different game entirely. But right now you should be able to do that in one single pop. Electricity is everywhere in this country. There's no part of this country that hasn't got some form of plug on it. Different various speeds, but at least electricity is already there. So getting a home charge like the EV box from Des down in the corner, that sort of stuff, that should be really straightforward in pretty much any house. So we're pretty much ideally suited. Now for those who aren't in the industry, I just want to get rid of some buzzwords, some names and things that people throw out the whole time, and they appear and then they disappear and you're not sure what you just heard a second ago. So ICE is internal combustion engine. That's the engine that doesn't have any battery backup, doesn't get help from anywhere else. That's the one that's going to get banned for sale from 2030. Okay? Now that's, of course, that depends on who's in government in 2030 and what happens between now and then, but right now that's what's going to happen. That may change along the way. Never depend on what the government's going to do next. After that, you got mild hybrid. Mild hybrid's a relatively new thing and kind of nonsense. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. Some of the newer ones are okay. There's a Volvo that I drove recently, a B5 it's called. That one there can run the heating from the batteries. So you can precondition, you can heat up the car before you get into it. Runs entirely from the battery system. Other ones do various topics. Generally, they assist the engine up to about 18 kilometers an hour. So in city traffic, it's debatable, but a mild hybrid might save a little bit of CO2. But that's about it, really. Mild hybrid is a way of charging more money to get the same fuel economy, essentially. Then you have HEV, which is hybrid electric vehicle. The more famous of those will be anything from Toyota currently, who say diesel is dead. They're all basically hybrids. Now a hybrid would be a petrol engine generally, although there is diesel engines as well. Back on off? Mike?
Yeah.
Yeah. Try that again. Back on now? Just turn yourself off. Lovely. Nice, Mike. The petrol engines in a hybrid will help drive the car, and then you have a battery system underneath the back seats usually that assists the car up to speed. HEVs, proper ones, can drive entirely from the battery for a very short range. Okay, So they've been around for years. We had the Prius for years. It's gone off again.
I'll charge it up there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Dennis, there's a really good charger back. That one, yeah, that's another one. That's a different one. I can charge. So HEVs, they charge up the battery under the seats from just the engine. And this idea that Toyota have a self-charging hybrid, I suppose, what else would you call it? But essentially it means that it charges itself while it's driving. So you're using the petrol engine, or you're using deceleration through a KERS system. So as you decelerate or as you brake, it will regenerate power into the battery. It's negligible, but it's there. If you live downhill from your work, great, you can use a HEV to get there, right? But other than that, most of those HEVs is just another stepping stone. It's a way of selling cars while Toyota is getting themselves ready to start selling electric cars, full electric or hydrogen, whichever they decide they're going to go for. PHEV is plug-in hybrid electric vehicle. So essentially you've got a standard hybrid vehicle with bigger batteries, and it has a plug socket on the side, so you can plug it into your home charger, you can plug it into 22 kilowatt street chargers, you can plug it in pretty much anywhere. So what it does is it can drive for a certain distance, mostly between 30 and 50 kilometers on pure electric. So if you live 30 kilometers from where you work and you have a plug on both ends, you could drive there and back without using any petrol engine power, just electricity. In Dreamland, that works. For some people in Dublin, that 100% works, and they've got a full petrol engine attached to them, or a battery engine attached to the petrol engine that gets them where they want to go. It sounds good, but if you can make a PHEV work properly and do the 30-kilometer range every time, you probably should have bought an electric car anyway. Like, you're one step away from it. That single trip you might make down to Waterford from Belfast on the petrol engine really isn't worth buying that much more money. But the selection of PHEVs is far broader, so almost every company has a HEV or a PHEV in their range somewhere. More notably, BMW have really started doing it recently, but Mitsubishi are there as well with a fairly decent. The Outlander is actually not a bad car. It's a bit plasticky inside, but the rest of it is actually pretty good. The technology underneath, the range you can get in those cars is actually quite a distance, and they charge pretty good. So there is a decent offering of PHEVs out there. Then you're on to the proper BEV, battery electric vehicle. That has no other backup. It charges from deceleration, it charges from braking, but it also charges from the plug, and that's your only options. There's no other backup versus that. From them, it really isn't that many of a big selection at the moment. But the most notable in those is something like the Hyundai Kona, which has probably the longer range of them. The Kia Soul EV is the same car, so Kia and Hyundai are the same company. They operate one factory representing the other in South Korea, and they import the cars the same way. So they are competitors in this country. So Hyundai dealers and Kia dealers are very, very separate. They come to fisticuffs very rapidly if anything goes wrong. But other than that, they are actually the same company. The profits go to the same place. So the cars underneath, the engine, the battery units, and the chassis system, the suspension are all pretty much the same underneath. The cars are slightly longer or slightly shorter than each other. But other than that, the cars are pretty much the same. What I want you to hear as well, what I'm talking through today, is DPF. Just remember this one, diesel particulate filter. There is currently as well GPFs, which are gasoline particulate filters. They go into ICE engine cars, they go into internal combustion engines, and they filter out some of the particulates. We'll get into more detail on that in a minute. And then there's a few older ones, like the BMW i3 came with a thing called a Rex, which is a range extender engine. Essentially, it's a BMW motorbike engine in the boot. It would come on when the battery was flat, and it would charge the battery, and that would allow the car to go on further. They took it off sale because it just was too expensive. We have VRT in this country, and it just makes the cars look insane prices. If anyone's ever seen a Seat Me or a Skoda Citigo or any of those kind of small cars, they all come in electric. We don't sell them here because it's too expensive. Fiat 500 comes in electric. We don't sell it here either, it's too expensive. You talk to any of the car companies, they tell you about it. If you pay the VRT and all the taxes on it, the car would look insane against the price of a petrol version. So it makes no sense for them to bring it. And plus, they can't get enough batteries. So the problem with battery supply, we're back to that same problem again. If the car industry can't ramp up, and this is one of the oldest industries out there, one of the broadest and biggest industries in the world, if they can't ramp up supply on it, but then this is going to be a real moot point for the rest of this year. Because if the cars aren't there, then they can't get them. So the burning question for everyone has is petrol and diesel really dead, particularly diesel. As Toyota have announced, and it's in their advertising, diesel is dead, right? So that's because they don't make any more diesel engines. They buy them from PSA instead. So Toyota still put them into their vans. So even though they say it's dead, they're still selling them in their vans. But they buy them from Peugeot, right? So that's essentially what's going on. They can say it's dead, but actually it's still there. So it's just marketing at the moment, right? diesel isn't dead right now. There's no point right now in saying this because you can't get any electric cars. You can't get enough supplies. Unless you start buying second-hand stuff, and even they have a limited supply now. Things are starting to ramp up as more and more people want it. So even a second-hand car sale becomes a problem. But if you look at the market in general, there's lots of places where diesel, right now this minute, cannot be replaced. There's lots of places right now where electric cars just don't make any sense, because unless you're determined and plug it in and charge it every single time you get to your destination, you're not going to make that long range stuff work. So when you get the kind of sales reps on the road, you know, you've got to be determined to get where you want to be. You've got to have a charge point near your appointment. Lots of guys don't have the time. I deal with these guys all the time. They don't have the time to just pull over and charge every time they walk to a destination, or spend their whole time walking around the town in a nice shirt and tie with a briefcase and stuff. That doesn't happen anymore. People drive directly to their destination. If the charger isn't there, they're not going to go there. It's that pretty straightforward. So for some, diesel still makes a lot of sense. Now, where electric could make a lot of sense, and it isn't being used, is in the commercial industry. And we're talking about buses now. We could very easily electrify our bus network. That's already happening in multiple countries across the world. Yet a few years ago, Dublin Bus was allowed 40 brand new diesel buses. Straight away, no problem, it's all done. All done by Dublin Bus, just before the budget that allowed electric engines to start work. Now, if the buses could go electric, you'd find a huge drop in CO2 emissions, and not just from buses, but from trains, which can also be electrified. Now that's going to be really expensive, but like that's very expensive to change all of our diesel units off right now and put them on electric, but it could be done. You could also electrify trucks. I watched a little video the other day where a fellow was actually putting a track down the centre of the road, and the truck followed the track, which was electrified. That's very expensive. Much easier to put a kind of overhead gantry system and electrify it that way. But you could do trucks overnight. It has to evolve to that, but we have to be starting to think that way. We can't just keep going the way we're going, expecting all of you to buy electric cars, but not an industry. So we're just going to ignore the fact that trucks out there all have diesel engines, buses all have diesel engines, trains all have diesel engines. Here's another simple thing, like airlines. Currently, airline pays no tax on aviation fuel. So the fuel that they buy here in this country, they pay zero tax for. Nothing. And that's kerosene. That's again, now they can't change off the electric. You're not going to have an electric aircraft, right? Can you imagine if a Ryanair aircraft was electric? But God, it's not big enough yet. It can't be done. They try and sell you something. I'm sure they try and sell you tickets to the toilets or something, so they use it that way. But that's definitely there. This is on the way. In a small scale, you will find electric stuff, hydrogen stuff starting to creep in around there. But right now, the airline industry, which when you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning, watch that crisscross on a nice clear blue sky, millions and millions of tons of CO2 being emitted by all of them all the time, tax-free, completely. 16,000 litres of fuel is used on a single journey by a modern-day aircraft between here and Barcelona. One journey. Okay, so your 70 litres of diesel that goes into your tank is tiny in comparison to one of those aircraft. So petrol and diesel is being invested in by car companies because they've got factories. You have to remember that someone like Volkswagen has 100-year-old factories that are out there that employ hundreds of people to make diesel engines and make petrol engines. You can't just dump all of those people. They have to be retrained, but even they can't be retrained that quick, because to make an electric engine is a lot simpler. If you've ever seen one out on the floor, it's like an assortment of a fridge or something. It's really straightforward. A child could clip together like Lego. It's not difficult to make them, which is good, but also it means you've got to dump all those jobs. And for instance, Ford last year, Ford International dumped 8,500 employees in Europe. Here in Ireland, they dumped 32 employees. So just think about it for a second, that these people, and they don't even have an electric car. Ford have not made an electric car yet. They promised the Mustang, which is coming, a Mach Mustang or something. Bad name, looks like a pretty good car. Silly name to call it though, but they've promised that, but we still haven't driven, we haven't seen it, it's not there. Volkswagen done the same thing. They did the heavy lifting a few years back as well, dumped a lot of employees out when Dieselgate hit them first. Peugeot, PSA Group, dumped 32,000 people 4 years ago. That was quiet, huh? Nobody noticed that one coming. And in the bailout that they received from the French government, they bought Opel. So Opel is owned by PSA now as well, and they've just done a deal with Fiat, and that's also owned now by PSA. So based on the third, nearly the second largest car manufacturer on earth, they don't have an electric car yet. They've one coming. Again, it's always coming. It's always just around the corner. It's not quite here yet. So other fuels you could possibly take, right? So this is the kind of imaginary dreamland stuff that is around the corner. But unfortunately, because people talk about it a lot, because people go on about this fuel, People go, I'm not buying an electric car today because the next thing is hydrogen, or I'm going to be flying to Mars or something. Hydrogen is a lovely one, and there is guidance in Ireland, particularly from Toyota, who have people, they've created a board, a steering group for hydrogen in Ireland, and it's brilliant. It emits nothing but water on the exhaust. That's the plan of hydrogen. So you pour it, it works just like petrol and diesel right now. You go to a petrol station or you go to a hydrogen station, you pour it in your tank and you drive on. It sounds brilliant, but actually hydrogen is really expensive to make in the first place. To actually turn it into hydrogen is a very long process, very expensive process. Storing it, there's no hydrogen fuel stations in Ireland currently. I think there's 2 or 3 maybe in England, in the entire island that they have there, maybe 2. And there's a number now in Germany and Switzerland and places like that. They have a couple of hydrogen fuel stations because they've been doing it the right way, which is running buses. So we could do it here in Ireland for a depot situation. You could take hydrogen, put it in the ground and have it as a big depot system. So anything, trucks or buses can come to that depot, fill up, and away they go again. That works well. But for the home user, for you guys, unless there's some dramatic change overnight, it's going to be a good 10, 20, maybe even 30 years before we start seeing personal transport on a regular level to come in. The reason for that is we don't have a hydrogen fuel station here in Ireland. There might be permission to build one, but it's not here yet. And we would have to build one where you need them again. So back to petrol station level, you'd have to put them into all the petrol stations. And currently petrol stations don't even want to put in electric charge points. They don't dig a whole new hole for hydrogen fuel stations. So it's on a different level. We have to scale up to that level. But right now, electricity is everywhere. So right now we can charge. You can charge in this building. There is charge points downstairs in the car park. 2 of them, I think, or 3 of them. I found it a bit hard to find. There's 4 of us who've got it. I found it a bit hard to find. There was actually a sign for the thing. I couldn't see it. I'm not in an electric car today, but I couldn't find it way around. But we'll get across that. So why would you need an electric car? Has anybody got an electric car? I know you have got one. Yeah. So there's a few people actually have an electric car. I would say that's probably, and I was talking to someone earlier on, I said it'd be about 2% of the audience would put their hand in the air for electric cars, because that's kind of reflective of the market in Ireland. It's pretty much, it's a small amount. Everyone else is kind of EV curious, but it's still that small amount. The reason it's small amount is because of the price is number 1. So if I take a Hyundai Kona, because a Hyundai Kona has, I can't remember what Hyundai is now, something for everyone or something. So a Kona comes in a pure electric, comes in a hybrid, and comes in a petrol version. Plain old petrol, with a tailpipe in the back, which is normal, okay? So they've got the 3 versions of it going there, and in other countries I've seen that thing come out in diesel as well, but that's in different districts. So in this country you have the 3 versions. The electric one, if I take away all the grants, and you were to walk into a dealership and just buy it straight out, without paying any grants, without getting any discount from it, it'd be €49,000. That's insane. That's the price of like a 3 Series or an Audi A6 or something. You're up that end of the market for what should be a budget brand, you know. Same applies for Kia. They're all basically the same. The most affordable one would be something like a Renault Zoe, would be the most affordable in the market. But even then, if you compare a Renault Zoe to a Renault Clio, it's still way more expensive. The Clio is much bigger. So we have to find that stable point of the market. The reason those prices are all over the place is because of grants. The grants that are received, you can get 2 grants currently for buying an electric car. One comes from the SEAI, that's €5,000. So that's €5 grand off the ticket price. That €49,000 becomes €34,000, doing math now. €44,000. And then if you take another €5,000 off the BIK, you go down to the €39,000 mark. And then you get discounts and underwrites and whatever the dealership wants to do, trade-ins and PCPs and all that sort of stuff. And suddenly it starts to make sense, to make it affordable, but still, if you start comparing the price of that car to a standard petrol and diesel car, forgetting about HEVs or anything else, if you start comparing one to the other, the price doesn't work out. It just doesn't. The reason behind that is because when the grants are given, they're given to the car companies. We are incentivizing the wrong end of the market. You guys don't need incentives to get into cars. Businesses need incentives to make sure that you're in those cars. We're incentivizing everybody in the wrong way. We're also distorting the market. So every time we grant something to somebody, you're distorting the natural ebb and flow of a competitive market. What you're saying is the government is going to steam in and just give electric cars this much money first. You feel good. The car company ramps up the price a little bit because they know you're going to get a 10 grand grant, and they know they can blind you with science when it comes to the PCP aspect of stuff. And you walk out with your car. You're happy, for sure, until you start sitting down and actually looking how much you just paid for that car and how much it is versus the cars around. Now, the Kona standard petrol one, even at high spec, is anywhere from €18,000 cheaper. just to buy the same car. Now it's the same name, it's not the same car, but essentially it's the same name. It's just pure petrol underneath. And fair play to Hyundai, they don't hide it either, which is only part of that. They don't try and sneak it away as a different car. Like the ID3 is essentially a Volkswagen Golf 8 with a different body on the outside. Okay, so you're basically buying the same car, but the two of them are going to be much more different in price, huge difference in price. Now, you needing an electric car, so this is where things can get fairly confusing. If you're buying an electric car and you don't have a home charger, you're going to have a bad time. Currently, ESB and all the rest of them are charging you to charge on the street, not at the slower chargers or at the 22 kilowatt chargers. That's still free currently. That could change daily, but things have been changing even this last 2 weeks as other companies get involved and suddenly start charging more money for their chargers. So there's a competition happening. And when you have Volkswagen, who are going to open their own energy company, that's going to happen in this country. They're going to become like the ESB. They're going to supply you electricity to your house. They're going to bill you. Not the thing is called EV or LV or something like that. Yeah, that's coming to Ireland. That's going to come on the rollout of the ID3. So when Volkswagen want to become an energy partner to your house, you can be guaranteed they have a vested interest in that to make sure you buy an electric car from them. So they're going to offer you, there'll be an offer to go with that. You buy the ID3, they give you a year's worth of electricity at home, they tie you in as an electricity customer. After 3 years, you're sick of the ID3 and you buy yourself a Porsche electric or something, but you're still a customer of Volkswagen because you never change your ESP bits. You know that happens all the time. Currently, if you're not swapping your electric over and back between all the various companies in Ireland, you're insane. The savings are huge. Every time I look at an electricity company, they look expensive compared to the one next to it. And it's all about standing charges, and it's all about the rate you actually pay. Okay, so the rate, you don't worry about discounts or getting 10% off this, that, there are free holidays, forget it. The rate, the night rate, the day rate is all you want to talk about with an electric company. Same as Volkswagen. Now, owning an electric car or driving an electric car with regularity can seem a bit daunting at first, okay? Because right now in Ireland we have maybe 5, even 6 different apps that you need to download on your phone just to go from one place to the other long range. You need to know where the chargers are. You need to have, is it engaged, is there someone at it, is it out of service, all these questions. So if you're coming from a diesel car, a petrol car right now, you've never done any of this before. Most dealers are not ramped up to teach you how to do this. They're just happy with the sale. They only want to sell you a car, you're just a unit, they want to sell you a car, they do not give you an education course, they're not going to negotiate you through the first week of ownership. None of that's going to happen. You're going to have to rely on the people around you, YouTube videos, that sort of stuff, to try and figure out how you go about charging your cars. ESB currently have 2 apps, I think. One is they're getting rid of, and the other one they've developed and it's a bit different, and there's a map in it, and it's a bit clunky, a bit hard to use. There's other ones, there's like EV boxes out there, they've got their own app for your home charging. There's other apps that are coming along the way, and they're kind of clunky, most of them, because the information changes. And it's all down to communications with the box that stands on the side of the road as to whether you can charge it. But your first experience of charging should be at home. So when you get your car home for the first day, you take out your charging cable, you plug it in, and you charge it up, and there'll be an app on your phone attached to that charge box, whether it's EV box or it's LV or it's whatever it is, all the different brands are out there. They'll all have some sort of app, so it can make it very easy. And if you charge at home, they've got different rates, and you're in control of the price of your fuel. That's something that's the first time it's happened in history. When cars started first, they were actually electric. The first few cars were electric, but batteries at that time were crap, right? So they didn't reuse it. So you wouldn't get an electric car from here to there with some of these batteries. Now we're getting to the point where we get much further. But the first cars were electric, but after that, the problem was not everywhere had electric, so you couldn't charge the cars anyway. It was much easier to make an internal combustion engine, which is hard in itself, and make it run on different things. So the first diesel engine was designed to run on peanut oil, but they couldn't get much peanut oil in Western Germany, so they decided to run on diesel. And the guy who invented his name was Diesel. So that's where diesel came out of, and that was easy because you could bring a can of diesel with you, or you could buy it and send it out to chemists. For the first petrol engines out there were fueled by going to your chemist, buying a litre of petrol and pouring it into your can. So it was easy back then. So we never really tried to develop electric engines after that. Now we're at a change in attitude now. People want to clean up the environment, and I'm going to make a fairly bold statement now. Anybody's here for environmental purposes. You buying an electric car today will make no difference to the global environment for the next 10 years. Nothing. Please don't be sold on that. Your local air quality, that's a whole different ballgame. You can clean up the CO2 and the NOx emissions in your local town by driving your electric car every day. Parking outside your school, being stuck in traffic and all that, that all produces a huge amount of CO2 and NOx, which I'm going to admit what they are. But that sort of stuff, locally, it works fine. But you're not going to create a better environment for the whole globe today by changing to electric cars. In the next 10 years, if you all change to electric cars, we'd start to see a lowering of the CO2 emissions, but only micrograms, until everybody does it, until industry does it, until the car industry and the truck industry and the airplane industry, until they all get behind it as well. It's all semantics after that. Buying an electric car today is a good thing for you, for the environment, for sure, but only the local environment, only the environment outside your door. The benefit for you is in your pocket. It is still, it's not as cheap as it was, but it's still considerably cheaper to run an electric car every day if you're doing very short mileage. And I'll get into long mileage in a minute, but if you're doing the industrial average mileage of Europe is 30 kilometres, isn't that crazy? You only do 30 kilometres a day, so you buy a hugely expensive petrol and diesel engine car, leave it outside your door, and leave it there for about 18 hours. And then you get back into it and you drive it home. That's crazy. That idea you only drive maybe 2-3 hours a day, and most of that is sitting still. If you think about Dublin, Galway, even here in Athlone, I drove in here today, coming through the traffic here today, I must have stood still for a good 6 or 8 minutes, going absolutely nowhere. And the engine's just kicking over. I know it's stop start. Everybody turns off the stop start from the engine, nobody really. So it's that thing, first thing half it does dealing with. Of course, not going to have nothing annoying me, right? Some cars are pretty good. The latest Volvos and things actually do pause the engine. You don't even feel it go on and off, but you can still hear it in your head. You still hear that silence. And then you're sitting at the traffic lights and you go, is it going to go? Is it going to go? And you put your foot down and nothing happens for a second and all of a sudden you're off. So most people turn off the stop start. It's a nonsense thing. It's better put the battery, that's why they put the button in, so you can turn it off. If it was law or they were really interested in you lowering your CO2 emissions, they wouldn't have given you a button to turn it off, right? So the first thing you do is turn it off. Wherever you go on this island, you will have that same vested interest trying to sell you an electric car. And most of them will gloss over the little points. That's why I have to take a hat off to Joyce and the team, because they literally just went, just say what you want to say. It doesn't matter if it's bad or good. Fortunately, it's pretty good, okay? Most of it's pretty good. For most of you, could use an electric car today, every day, all day, without any effort. It really would be that straightforward to change over. It would take you 2 or 3 weeks to get into the stream of things. You'd have to kind of figure out what app to use, where you're going. Now, where things change is when you're higher mileage. So over 15,000 kilometres, you should be on night rate meters at home. Okay, so you pay the excess, because there is actually an extra excess, I think it's 150, 175 or something. You pay extra to have a night rate meter per year. So over 15,000, 13 to 15,000 kilometres, it starts to make sense. Unless, obviously, if your whole house is electric and you're doing all your washing and your dishwashing and drying your hair at night time and doing all that stuff, that's a different story. You can do all that at night if you want to. But night rate meters make sense, but only if you're going to be charging a hell of a lot, and only if you're going to be charging at night time. So you really have to set up that car to only charge during the night when you're on the best rates. Like most human beings, when you're going to charge a car, you charge it 100% at home. Almost everybody does it. No matter who I ask, they all go, no, I don't charge the 80, I charge the 100. Just plug it in and you forget about it. You're going to have to set the timers in the car. There's little timers and things you can set. There's actually apps you can get for your phone as well that can control the cars. These are all future stuff, but they're kind of here. So it does make life a little bit easier. The problem is electric cars are still kind of there and we're still here. We're not quite attached. One is coming, the other one's here. And it's a bit awkward trying to figure out which one you are supposed to be in right now. If you're in a diesel car today, a petrol car today, and it's young, you just bought it a couple of years ago, don't panic. It's all okay. It's not going anywhere. No, it's always going to have a value. The problem is with the government bringing in this 2030 ban, that kind of distorts the market. So your second value, your value, your future value coming up to that point may be affected by that. So if you're still in a diesel when it comes up to 2029, you might struggle to find a second-hand market for it. This is the problem in that we're going that direction. So again, with government messing in the car industry and doing it publicly, doing it by forcing the public to change, that's the problem. What the government should have done to begin with was incentivize hotels like this to put 50 7.4 kilowatt chargers downstairs in the car park. Just 50 of them, maybe 100 of them. Just have them along the walls. Don't worry about special parking space or marking them out green or any of that stuff. Just put them in every car park space that's near a wall, right? make them all low voltage, so they don't have to be great big fast charging, 50 kilowatts, 75, all that sort of stuff. Don't worry about that stuff. Leave that for the motorway, leave that for the big petrol station stuff where you go and get your muffin and it costs you end up spending as much on food as you do on the bloody charging, right? So every time you pull up, you're getting a cup of coffee and a muffin and stuff, and you 2-ton weight. By the time you get this electric car, it's brilliant. We're going to have a heart attack, we don't stop going to the petrol station. But that's where those fast chargers should be. Anything above 50 kilowatt hour chargers should be out there, not in places like this. They should have the lower voltage stuff. So when you come to a shopping centre, every car park space you put into that's near a wall, you plug it in and you go off and do your shopping. You're going to be there for an hour anyway. Here's the thing I did the other day. I was in IKEA East Seoul, went up to IKEA, massive place, guaranteed to spend an hour, maybe 2, maybe even 3, depending on what's happening there. You've got to get the meatballs, right? So you've got to go to the meat when you're there. There is no chargers. Not a single one. I don't know what that noise is. That's somebody's phone, alright. I was looking around going, what the hell is that coming from everywhere? But there's no chargers in IKEA. None. They have a Decathlon opening next door. Anyone's ever been to a Decathlon in France or Spain? Great shop, you're going to spend another couple of hours there. Why isn't there incentives for IKEA to put in 100 store chargers and leave it there? Coat the whole car park in. The more out, and don't make them special spaces, don't make them like the special wheelchair space, none of that crap. Don't paint them green, just leave them there. And let people just drive in IC engine cars and electric cars, because there'll be so many of them, you'll always get a charge. Instead, right now, we have the special case idea. We have to go to Tesco's, one big charger on the wall. You pull in and there's a PHEV there charging in front. You can't get in around the guy. And Nissan Leaf, the ubiquitous Nissan Leaf, is sitting there beside him. And you're all trying to fight for the park. You can't. You don't know how long you're going to be. How long are you going to be? What are you charging? All this conversation stuff is because of a shortage of chargers. It's not because human beings aren't doing the right thing. Just not enough chargers around. Now, when I'm on chargers, we go into some prices for a minute, okay? So pricing has changed. Even in the last week or so, I honestly started charging different rates as well, which is actually a pretty good thing. They're favouring their own customers. So if you drive an Audi or you drive a Volkswagen or whatever it is, you can get a special rate from honestly, if you don't drive one of their special cars, it charges at a phenomenal rate of 71 cents per kilowatt hour, which works out to be like 50 quid or so to charge an electric car. It's prohibitively expensive. They've done it on purpose, and it's probably going to wind up being a pretty good thing, as more of their customers will be you guys after a while. They used to just charge €8. €8 for a full fill. So I'm going to take, I have some numbers written down here. I'm going to take a 64 kilowatt battery, and I use a Kia e-Soul as my sort of reference, right? Because Kia and Hyundai have the bigger batteries in their cars. 64 kilowatt will get you anywhere from 350 if you're good, 450 if you drive at 5 miles an hour with your foot off the accelerator downhill pretty much everywhere, right? So the promise is one thing, the reality is a whole other ballgame. It really very much depends on how you drive. If you drive consistently on motorways, it never slows down. Motorway is aerodynamics. So aerodynamics is slamming into the front of the car, trying to slow it down the whole time. You're trying to speed it up, so between the two, you're burning that battery quicker. So you'll get much less range. But if you're driving around Dublin City, Galway City, you'll barely use any battery because it's constantly recharging as you slow down, as you take your foot off, okay? And when you touch the brakes or when you park around like that, it's constantly trying to recharge during those times. So you'll get much further. But I'm going to take it as if we can do 400 kilometers. That's pretty much the easy way to do it. Currently, if you want to charge on the street at a fast charger from ESB, so those big green boxes with a screen on the side, there's no help whatsoever when something goes wrong. One of them things, they charge at about 50 kilowatts. So you'll get a full charge on one of these cars. It's generally only supposed to go to 80%, right? That's what people say. But some people hang on there to the 100%. You know, they want to go right to the top. So I'm going to take it the same as petrol. So if you start thinking about a litre of fuel and 1 kilowatt of electricity, same thing. 64 litres of fuel is what you're going to put into the car. So if I'm going to charge from empty, I've coasted up to this charge. That never happens. And I want to charge it to 100%. Again, it doesn't really happen at fast chargers. You generally charge about 80% to continue your journey on. But assuming you want to charge to the very top, at 32 cents per kilowatt hour, it's going to be €21.12. Okay? Now that's not what you pay at that time. You pay that over 3 or 4 or 5 charges because you never really charge 100%. But that's the higher rate. If you pay €5 a month at ESB, they give you a discounted rate. So if you use it regularly, the discounted rate is 29 cents per kilowatt, and that's going to cost you €18.56. Now, if you compare that to a diesel engine car, at €1.40 per litre of diesel, that's what it's kind of hovering around for the past while, but it's gone up a bit in the last little bit, so petrol and diesel starting to rise. Again, trouble in the Middle East, what's going to happen, I tell you. A diesel does about 5 litres per 100 kilometres, give or take. A really efficient, a good efficient diesel, even on a motorway, will do 5.5 to 6 litres per 100 kilometres, but give it that you're in a really efficient diesel car. So 400 kilometres would be about 20 litres of fuel. 20 litres of fuel would be €28.60. So you save, even on a fast charger, you save an electric car, and you save a considerable amount. Okay, so that's just street charging. Now, if you go to Ionity, I'm going to leave out Ionity because they've distorted their prices recently, and it's very easy to start hitting them with €50 for this and 50, but it doesn't make any sense. That'll settle down over time. They're an entrant to the market. There's more than Ionity in the country, and there's more than ESB. There's probably about 5 of them now coming into the country. So depending on where you want to charge and how you want to charge, you see them in Lidl, you see them at various places. They all charge different rates, so it's impossible to go through everybody. So I'm just going to take the national rates of ESB. Now, if you charge at home, you save an awful lot more. Right? This is where things really get good. So you put in a home charger that does EV box on the back, as theirs will work out for you. I'm going to take a higher, slightly higher rate than normal, about 15 cents per kilowatt hours, but basically the national average. Some of you are paying a lot more than that, and I do advise you to check your ESB bill when you get home. Find out what you're paying for each rate. I've seen people pay up to 21 cents. They don't realise because it's wrapped up in all kinds of discounts and things that they're getting from the company. Forget about it. Find out what the rate is. You should be paying 15 cents or less at home. Okay, I've seen 13, I've seen 12 for some of them. It's variable, right? But take it that the national average is 15 cents, you're going to pay €9.60 for a charge. Again, from empty to full. Very rarely, you might be empty or more or less empty by the time you get home. You might be down to 10 or 5%, but it won't be that much. So you probably more like €8 per go, right? That's at home. If you put in a night rate meter, that's about 10 cents per kilowatt. That's going to cost you about $6.40, and you can get less than that. Night rates can go down to 8 cents as well, so you get less. So it's ever decreasing profit. So that's all the same amount of fuel. Thinking that diesel is $28.60 for 400 kilometres, and at home on a night rate meter, $6.40. So it's a big difference in price there. Massive difference, massive saving. Night rate meters only make sense when you get to about 13,000 kilometres. So don't depend on night rate meter. You can then cost yourself too much money. If you're only charging one, like my wife, we have a Seat Leon at home, which is a 1.6 petrol. My wife drives it all the time. She does 6,000 kilometres a year, a whole year, right? Waste of time getting a night rate meter for us, because if we had an electric car doing the same mileage, we'd only charge it once every 2 or 2.5 weeks or something. It'd be very little charging you doing it, like once in a while. And any other charging would be done on the street, so it wouldn't make any difference. We're not going to pay it at home anyway. So night rate to me wouldn't make any difference. But to you, if you're going to be doing a lot of mileage, you're going to be doing spinning up and down, you're going to be charging every night maybe if you're doing a lot of that sort of stuff. At that point then night rate meter starts to make a lot of sense. Now there are grants, I've covered them a little bit earlier on. The grants are covered by the SEAI and in BIK. Now these grants can be removed, by the way. So every time a budget comes up, everybody starts getting a little bit twitchy around the grants, right? Because the SEAI give them out, and everybody, you notice that it's mentioned in every budget. It's not given that the grant remains. In every single budget, the finance minister gets up and the grants will remain at €5,000. He says it every time, which means it's always up for discussion. That can change very quickly. So by this October, those grants could be gone. In actual fact, they could be gone any point of the year. There's no law that's covering that they have to stay. But they could be gone, it could be changed, it could be higher, it could be lower. So we don't know where that's going to go. That's a variable thing, and it depends who's the Minister of Environment, who's the Minister of Finance. Are they genuinely someone who's interested in the environmental aspects of Ireland, or are they just kind of in there for the crack, you know? These people can just change those grants overnight. So the grants you get, SEAI get them, your dealer, whoever your dealer is, new or used, your dealer will sort out those grants for you in a blink of an eye. It's not a big deal. It's really straightforward. It comes back to you over time. You also get a grant off the EV box as well. So you get the installation of that, or part of that, half of that covered, thereabouts. Des will go through that with you in a minute if you want to ask him any questions on that, so he'll go through all that part. So every one of those grants, as I said before, distort the natural ebb and flow of the business system up there, because you're granting one. Imagine this, if I was selling laptops, right, and you were selling laptops, John, and you were selling laptops, and we're all in the same room trying to sell laptops. Now we have a choice. We could fix our price. So we could go like, we're just all going to sell them at €1,000, right? See who's the best seller. Or we could genuinely compete. I could say, mine's €1,000, he's 900, he's 700, so he's the cheapest. So buy off him. That's a natural business flow of things, okay? Now, if I'm €1,000 and somebody comes in behind me and goes, listen, here's a grant of 500 quid, you can keep selling at €1,000. Oh my God, I can sell now at 500 quid, I just undercut those two, and there's nothing they can do about it. I got it cheaper. The same product would be gotten cheaper. So if you keep incentivizing people by giving them grants, you do sell more indeed, but then you end up in this situation where the infrastructure is not there because there's no incentive for business to put in the chargers. That's where the grants should have gone to. We were putting the cart before the horse. We're incentivizing people into electric cars. We haven't sorted out what's going to happen about. I know everyone says you should charge at home every single day. That's great, but there are days where you go out, like I did to IKEA, and I'm in a Kia e-Soul, and I've half a charge, and I know that half a charge is going to get me home, but you're still going, will it get me home? Or am I going to have to stop somewhere? Where am I going to stop? Ended up putting over in Tesco's and Nace, by the way, which has a fast charge point there. So I charged it there, it's a little boost, and went in and bought the shopping while we were there. Cost you a fortune. Electric cars cost you a fortune. Not because electric cars, because of all the shopping you do by the way for the charge. That's why things are going around the streets looking for something to buy. It's just part of it. It's all part of it. So charging at home is the best part. I don't think that solar panels, that kind of stuff that's on the roof is really operable here in Ireland as a proper way until ESB, which will be very soon, buying your kilowatt hours back off you. Okay, so once you start generating enough electricity, they'll start buying that. Now they could set that price at 1 cent, right? Still not economically viable for you what they're selling it to. But if you're generating enough of it, you might get some money back out of it. It's highly unlikely, but we'll see what ESB do. But the golden, the brilliant part of this would be that we end up in a situation where the solar panels is charging a battery unit on the wall in your house. Now, battery unit is giving power back to your car, but it's also running your house, and it's also supplying the electricity out to the grid. That would be ideal. And if you could network and daisy chain that whole system together where whole neighbourhoods are doing that, you could actually run the entire neighbourhood from all the batteries on the wall and never need the ESB in the first place. They could get out running the industry. So you're in that point where but now that's dreamland stuff. That's out away into the future. We could end up there, we may not end up there, who knows? Maybe something big torpedo is going to come in the near future. We'll find a whole different hydrogen suddenly gets great. Or we have rocket fuel that works on cars much better. Because like I said, there is investment going in all parts of this industry, not just electric. Infrastructure currently on the Irish roads is actually pretty good. We used to be brilliant. We used to just have one card and it opened all of the charge points all across the country. Whichever one you wanted, you could open a charge point with your bank card. You didn't even need to register with ESB because it was all free, right? But that's changed now. So ESB now requires you to register with them to open a fast charger. It also requires you to register. You have to actually register so you can build it, right? So it does cost money. And you also have to register for anyone else you turn up to, so any other company that you end up going to. Now again, when you go to a dealership, you're not going to get this. You go to a main dealer today and buy an electric car, they're not going to talk about this. They're going to recommend you something and you have to go off and find out how to do it yourself. Okay? So just bear that in mind. Now when you go to someone like Eco Cars here, they will do it because that's their specialty. They only sell these kind of cars, so they will specialise and they will guide you through the whole thing. They'll give you little slips and handouts and videos and so on. So that kind of thing can be done, but dealerships are not ramping up to it because dealerships only want to shift numbers. They don't care whether it's electric car, diesel car, petrol car. And because diesel and petrol is very easy to sell, you put them in and start the engine off, go. Most dealers don't even sure how to hook up to the Bluetooth. Okay, that happens a lot. A lot of penalty points given out last year because of non-use of Bluetooth in your car in your nice 2016, 2017. It comes as standard in your car, not hooked up to it because the dealer never showed you and nobody can be bothered really to find out how to do it themselves. So changing over to electric could be a big, big deal for you. Now, the biggest question is, should you buy electric now or wait? Now that's a big question because there's an awful lot on the horizon. There's an awful lot happening across the world. You've Australia on fire. You've parts of America on fire. You've parts of India that can't be lived in anymore because it's so hot. You've parts of Africa that are now desert that never were. We have change in our climate here as well. It's all part of it because CO2 is a light gas. It comes out the back of everything. Now you breathe it out as well, so it comes from everything. Okay, so it's everywhere. If you're losing weight, so if you're training right now, your body turns fat into CO2 and you breathe it out. That's where CO2 comes from you. Okay, you burn fat. So if you want to lower your carbon emissions, get fat. Right? Stop eating. But if you look at what CO2 emissions are doing right now, and I'm not going to take cars in particular, but it's just generally transport, any transport. Right now, a little duvet is happening above your head, and it's just between us and the sun, and between us and space. And basically, the heat rises off the surface of the Earth, hits that little duvet and comes back down. It's drying out the planet. It's not allowing new light to come through from the sun. It's blocking out a lot of that. It causes cloud. It causes a cooling of the surface of the Earth. Your electric car is not going to change that. But if we all combine our efforts to make big changes in our personal lives, we can have an effect on that. If you cut down on buying new things, if you start to recycle all your plastic, don't buy something that was wrapped in plastic. Go into Aldi, pick up something that is in black plastic and put it back on the shelf. The black plastic, more or less, can never be recycled. It's already been recycled, it's already there. You can't get it again. You see the labels on the back of the thing where it says not currently recycled on the back of it. But it is recyclable. You just don't want to. It's too expensive to do it. Don't buy new stuff. So electric car won't help you. But in your local emissions, diesel puts out a thing called NOx. That's a heavy gas. Now essentially NOx falls out of the back of the car, out of the exhaust system, sits on the ground behind the car. If you could see it or smell it, you'd be walking through it basically all the time. It's a heavy gas, so it stays right down. Generally speaking, car companies do this insane thing where they say, well, you know what, it blows away somehow, amazingly, as the wind picks up, it blows off. It does and it doesn't. It depends on how windy it is. Now, if you're in a city environment, that sits as a carpet on the ground, and as cars pass through it, they push it up against walls, and it comes back out over the top of people and falls on top of your face. An increase of lung cancer, throat cancer, mouth cancer, anything in the breathing airways has been noted across Europe. Some of that is down to NOx coming from cars. So if you want to improve the air quality and get rid of that NOx outside your schools, protect your kids, protect yourselves, protect everybody else, electric cars is a brilliant way to go. But that's the best way. So, should you buy one? That's up to you. I don't mind if you never buy one, right? I'm sure I'll get in trouble now for Joyce to say it, but I don't mind if you never buy one. It's entirely up to you. The pressure is not on you. You don't need to feel pressured today to go and buy them. They're really expensive. The price will go down as the market balances and we find cheaper batteries or cheaper ways of making batteries. Oh, by the way, I've seen Facebook posts going around with retarded, some retarded at me as well. Kids mining in Africa, and well, you know, that happened a while ago. Mostly batteries now are made mostly of aluminium and there's very little precious metals in them anymore. So that has changed though. So that, ignore that. If you're on Facebook, ignore that kind of post. Actually get off Facebook because Facebook battery mental health. But it is. You'll always think your life is terrible by looking at Facebook for 5 seconds because everybody else looks amazing on it, right? It's all that way. But if you're looking at that sort of post on Facebook that's putting me off, what are we going to do with oil, peak oil, there's plenty of oil left in, that's just petrochemical industry putting out rumours and stuff. It's just not true. And anyway, most of those countries, those kids work anyway. It's not that they're working particularly on mining lithium out of the ground or anything like that. It's not like that. They work anyway. Some of them don't go to school. It just happens. They take a picture, it goes up and it goes wild. It's just not true anymore. We are in control of where the batteries are coming from. We are in control of where the precious metals are coming from. Yes, they are mined from the ground. Make no mistake, they do make an environmental impact in putting them in the ground. But relatively speaking, it's about the same environmental impact to make a diesel engine. So it balances out the end. There is no next big thing. It's a brilliant thing you should take home from here. Everybody looks at the next big thing, forget about it. If it comes, you'll know about it once you see it. A lot of companies out there are looking for funding. They're saying they're the next big thing because they want to get $1 million from some tech company to develop whatever it is they're going to do. That's usually nonsense. From a journalist's point of view, I probably get 20 or 30 emails a day telling me that they're the next big thing. It's just a general email. We are developing this thing that flies and can bring you tea in the morning. Some drone companies developing something else, deliver pizzas to your house. There's always something that's happening out there. And we filter through some of it, but on a quiet news day, you find that a lot of these things are picked up. So some of this stuff becomes completely nonsense. Now, hopefully, you've learned what you need to know. I'm going to hang around for questions as I'm going to ask the rest of the boys up as well and answer any questions you have. Des, Mulhare Electrical. The question cards are there. I hope you fill them all in. We're going to take a little short break. And the question cards, you give them back to any of the staff that are around the edge here, and we'll answer any of those questions. Des is going to come up here, Raj is here as well, and we're going to come up on stage and answer any questions you have. But write them on the cards, there's just so many questions, it's very hard to get through them all just by putting our hands in. Thank you very much for listening. Hopefully I've answered all your questions. I am on YouTube if you want to get me as well. But my name is Bob Flavin. Thank you very much. Hi boys, how are we doing? Who's asking questions? Millions of us. Hopefully you enjoyed that. There will be more in a few minutes. There's going to be a round table question as well. It'll be here in a minute, so if you want to hang on for that one, you can. It's not like your traditional Sunday service, sorry, but we will get back. Normal service will resume from next week, actually. We're back on a Sunday service as normal. So stick around if you want to see the rest of it. Thank you very much. Just packed. I'm roasting as well.
Sorry? Probably not. Yes. It's too bad. If you want to check it out, you're driving.
Well, I can do like.
Yeah, no, that's fine. You need to have one like that. That's fine. What I just bring these. If I sit in the middle, there's garage either side. I might just put a bit of an arc. I want to get you in. Oh yeah, you go ahead. I'll do it.
Sorry, logistics. We're getting there. I'm just going to go and talk to some people. We're back in a minute. Relax. How many people are still watching? Oh my God! Look how many people are watching. That's mental. Thanks, Jerry Wicklow. Dave McCarthy, thank you. Hopefully thank you, Peter. You're very good. Hopefully all the audio came out okay, because it's just like an open mic and I'm just working off the speakers here. So I have to do like an hour of that. Hopefully our show will be coming to your town soon if you're in Ireland or even the UK. We're looking at moving this show from place to place. So if you can, brilliant, like it and share it if you can as well, it'd be great. I'm just going to leave this running for a while. If you want to turn around, I'll tell you what, I'll turn it around a little bit so you can see the audience. How are that? Alright, here we go. Now, the audience are asking questions, getting drinks of water. We're back in a minute.
Oh, you're right now. Gonna be out. Like that, just 52% because I usually see one of the cells and the other one has around
1
Draw a leg of it.
I'm back. How's on? Listen, we're going to do a talk now. We're all going to talk to. We're going to answer questions. So I'm going to face you back this direction, and I'm going to get a drink of water, and then I'm going to lie down in the corner. Yeah, you can. Right, let me see. Okay, so we're going to answer some Q&A now, right? Where am I sitting?
Beside me down, keep in the middle there. All the show together.
Nice in the middle. Talk about yourself, maybe.
How are the strings on?
Still live.
Yeah.
We're still watching. This is great. I don't know how many's watching anymore now. Just a few, I think. Under GDPR now, to warn you all, have to use that for future. I can't warn you all that, I'm sorry.
Not yet.
What's the second or short time on that dog?
Probably the way there.
Okay, so folks, we're going to have our panel discussion now, and we're going to take as many of your questions as we possibly can. If we don't get to your questions, we're all around afterwards, and you can come to us then and we'll address any questions we didn't get to. So, the first question is, and it's an interactive one. We're looking for a show of hands. So the question is, who has an EV? If you want to put up your hands.
More hands up now.
The second part of the question is, who has a petrol or diesel, an ICE?
Wow. That's
All the stats here. And then the last part of the question is, who has a hybrid?
Oh, wow.
I thought there'd be more.
And I'll add a bit into that. Who's considering an EV?
Don't let her see your face.
What are you doing here?
Okay, we'll move on. So I hope that answered your question, whatever it was that you submitted to us. The next question is, can you charge every night, or is it better to let it run down? So which of the panel wants to take that?
Can I take that there?
It's Des Mulcair from Mulcair Electric.
Yeah, so the thing about electric cars with batteries, so some people say that you shouldn't charge the batteries fully to 100% and you shouldn't let them go below 20%. So personally, I said to customers, charge the car to 100% all the time, because you're enjoying that car for the time. If you get a bad experience with it, you're in trouble. We had a customer recently, bought a brand new Leaf. After a couple of weeks, he said, I'm only tipping around town, I only charge the car twice a week, I won't worry about it. He got an emergency, had to go to the hospital in Dublin, bad experience, handed the car back, wanted a diesel. So these are the things that people don't tell you. Just keep the car charged to 100% all the time. If you look at it from a point of view, if you're going to buy a brand new car now here, in 5 years' time, the chance of you holding on to that car, you're probably going to trade it in and go again. So you're not going to be worried about what the battery is going to be in 8 years' time. So it's not very fair on the person who's buying the car, but they'll see the state of charge as well. So I would definitely recommend keeping the car fully charged anything.
Perfect. The next question, the ban on petrol and diesel new vehicles by 2030. The first part of the question is it realistic? Raj?
Yeah.
This is Raj Lyons from EV Energy.
Very, very good question. What I'd look at there is in terms of when we look at disruptive technology and the adoption of it, or how quick can EVs come mass market. Just go back to 2006, 2007, and we look at, everyone probably hasn't, we have a mobile phone. How fast did adoption from the mobile phone in 2006, how fast we all had mobile phones. So I think the target, yes, the target is quite a high target, but I think in Ireland we can do it in terms of when we look at the UK imports coming in, when we plug in hybrids. Like, people look at the numbers, the semi numbers, and like last year's numbers, and they look at the new registrations. But we also should look at the used registrations in terms of electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids as well. So I think it will happen quick. I think it will happen very, very quick. Like technology and disruptive technology, I think has a tendency, time frame wise, like you're probably talking 4 or 5 years. I think we're going to have quite a market. I think probably 40 or 50% of the market in that time.
There's a second part of the question then, will it contravene EU regulations if implemented?
In terms of the regulations get changed regularly, comes in with the likes of the governments and stuff at the time across Europe. Like if we look at it now and we look at the bans, if these bans are happening globally across the world, will they be implemented? Hard to say, it depends on what government is in power at the time across the countries.
Thank you, Raj. The next question is, how can I get a home charger installed if I live in an apartment?
Yeah, so currently we're speaking with the SAA about getting grants, to specific grants that will be given for people in apartments. So as part of the EVCIA, the Installers Association, which has just been recently set up, there's a few other members here I see. They'll speak with the SAA. There will be instructions on this coming, but currently you have to deal with your landlord. Whoever owns the car park or the space where you are, you need to deal with that person, because the landlord area is controlled by landlord supply. You cannot legally bring another supply into that area. You have to keep that on the landlord supply. So you have to deal with your landlord to get the connection, come to an arrangement with him, and then the beauty of having boxes that have smart technology in them as well is that you can track the usage. When you're tracking the usage, you know what you're going to be paying. You know, you can keep an eye on yourself with the app, and that way you're able to say, right, I use X amount of units this month, and come to an arrangement with them for the units used. Yeah.
Thanks, Steve. Right. The next question is, some EV markets such as Norway, China and even Ireland are starting to remove EV grants. The question is, do you think all EV markets will eliminate grants entirely, or do you think they will stick around for the future? I'd like to take that.
Grants are a big problem because they're incentivising the wrong end of the market. They're incentivising you to buy a car instead of incentivising the business to put in the charge points. So currently when you buy a car, you can get 2 grants in Ireland, but there are other grants across worldwide in different countries and stuff. They've done grants. And what they did in Norway was to actually make ICE engine cars very expensive. So by granting the electric cars, it looked really reasonably priced to buy an electric car. We haven't done that here. They still look expensive. But if you incentivise the business, if it becomes a common sight to see an electric charge point, a low wattage electric charge point in every shopping centre, in every car park, you see them everywhere. You don't need to incentivise people. They will naturally drift that direction anyway. They will naturally see the infrastructure is catching up on them. Right now, we have special zoned out car parking spaces, green boxes and things to park in. That makes it a special event for you to go and charge there. It shouldn't be that way. It should be the common thing. You don't specially designate a space in a petrol station for a car, right? You just put a road that you can just drive into and you just put in your petrol and you drive off. It's easy. So it should be just as easy to do electric charging. So we're incentivising the wrong end of the market. So I wouldn't worry too much about the charging grants going away. It depends on the government. You might find it go up actually. If there's enough pressure on them, they'll go up instead of down. But realistically, we made our bed now. We're lying in it. We should have charged for electric charge points as well from the very beginning. Now they look expensive because we were always at 0. So it's very easy to do it that way. But we're incentivising around in the market. So I'd agree with getting rid of them at some point in the future. Maybe not up to this budget, but sometime in the near future getting rid of them would be a good thing. And they will go away, of course.
Thanks, Bob. A question about finance here. What is the process for applying for finance? That's Hugh Arnold for Blended Finance.
Thanks, Joyce. It's fairly straightforward on finance. We partner with Eco Cars, and we would encourage most customers to come in online. So obviously, as you're viewing the vehicles online, there'll be a finance tab on the website. You fill in your details, which are fairly straightforward. Most people will be used to it nowadays. Name, address. One thing that has changed recently from the government regulations would be your PPS number. So as a broker, we would receive the information in online. We have 10 to 12 people in an office in Sligo who process them. Our service level agreements normally about 3 hours. So we would view the application, and where we can submit it. So we can do auto approvals, which can take a couple of minutes to get a customer approved. Sometimes they may require bank statements, pay slips, things like that. So in an instance where they're needed, we will communicate with the customer yourselves, which would be by phone, by text, by email, just to try and turn it around quickly. So on approval, you have some paperwork behind the scenes, which we dealer invoices, which would be standard for all car finance. The paperwork would be presented to us. We get in contact with the customer then. As a broker, people like to be met at their home, at their place of work, somewhere along the road between going to and from work. So we have a network of about 12 agents around the country. We would meet the customer on signing. We'd communicate with Joyce to let them know that the documents are signed, and then the car is released. So it's fairly straightforward. It's really down to customer convenience. You can do your application online, and that's where it's going. Some of the conversations I had today, we would have customers from Cork buying cars through dealers in Donegal. They don't see the vehicle, they just see it online. They might get a WhatsApp video just presenting the vehicle. Our guy in Cork would meet the customer and sign up. So I had one recently, I think it was down in South Wicklow. The guy was just in a total rush, working 80-90 hours a week, bought himself a nice new BMW and signed the paperwork with myself. I rang the dealer, and the car was going on to a transporter down to him for the following morning. So that's the environment we're working in these days, and we wouldn't have seen this 5 or 6 years ago. So from the international markets in the US and in the UK, it's common. So people sit at home, watching the Late Late Show, need to change their car, they need to get an electric vehicle, click, 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 and you can have it by Monday.
Thank you. A reviewer question here. I want to buy an EV this year, ID3 or Tesla?
Wow, better to drop us that one. Tesla have, I suppose, a better system involved. They're much more user-friendly, and Volkswagen are trying to copy them right now. So you can order a Tesla online with just a quick deposit. Then you pay the balance, and the car appears at the central door. Well, it doesn't because of dealership to be PDI, but it eventually appears at the central door. Volkswagen are trying to copy that currently. Now, we haven't driven, no one has driven the final product Volkswagen ID3. As many of these reviews you might see online, they're all bull. Okay, nobody's driven the real one. We've sat in it, we've looked at it, it's very plasticky inside. Not the worst thing in the world, but very plasticky dashboard and things. Tesla, we have driven. We know what they're like. They're very good long range. They've got a really good network set up for themselves. The superchargers and things, they all work, and they all seem to be in kind of the right place that you need them to be in. A bit expensive, but they're there. And Tesla is electric cars only. So given the difference in price though, a Model 3 is a little bit more expensive than an ID3. So they'll be similar, but a little bit more expensive. I would still go Tesla right now until I've driven an ID3, until I actually see one on the road and I've used it for a while. I want to know what Volkswagen are doing with their batteries and what they're doing with that plastic dashboard, which is driving me nuts to noise it. Tesla. If Tesla Ireland here is here, thanks.
And what's your opinion on the ID3? Yay or nay?
Until I drive it, I don't know. Until I've actually sat in the car driving around for a while, it looks good on the inside. They seem to have the whole network structure worked out. They will take your power. They are a power company now. They will give you grants and things to make you happy as an electric car owner for Volkswagen. It looks good, but it's all on paper at the moment. Until we see it on the road and we see it in operation and users are buying it, we won't know which one is the best one.
Thanks, Dan. Will retrofitting electric motors and batteries into current ICE cars become viable or affordable?
That's a really good question.
That's a very, very good question.
No. We will in a moment.
There's a company doing that at the moment.
trying to think of the name off the top of my head. They were at there's a company currently doing it. No, Guy is an Irish guy is leading it. They were at the Crow Patrick Summit. Don't know if any of you guys
Crow Park.
Crow Park, yeah. They were at the summit, and basically they're doing like I think the super end kind of type cars. Yeah, kind of going down in first. But
Electrified.
That's exactly it. That's the one we electrified. Their guys are doing this kind of high end stuff. I can't see it becoming a viable market, to be honest with you, not for the mass market. Just going back on Bob's point about the Tesla versus the ID3. When you're looking at people that are looking at EVs and stuff like that, yes, we have the innovators, which are a lot of you in the room that are driving electric cars and going into a Tesla, you'll be comfortable with it. But when we look at the likes of the mass market, without test driving a car and getting the information and getting the feel from a car, that's where you're going to have the Tesla. I think the business model is brilliant. Don't get me wrong, Tesla's model is brilliant, buy online. But for guys that are not used to, or ladies and whatever, they're not used to the electric cars, you need to go in and feel these cars, have a drive in the cars, and get the education. I think education across the entire motor dealerships, whether it be a new car dealership or a used car dealership, education is key. And not only education on the actual car, but actually the charging and the charging infrastructure and the energy. So I advise people when you're going to dealerships, have a list of questions that you want answered. And bear in mind, review the questions, research the questions online as well, because my experience, I'm 15 years in the motor trade, I used to sell these cars, and my experience is, you want to sell the unit, you want to sell the car. Now, we're used to selling petrol and diesel cars. Electric EVs are totally new technology. When someone comes up and asking me about charging, unless I'm self-educated and I understand the charging infrastructure in the network, if I don't have the answer, the salesman 9 times out of 10 is going to tell you something that he thinks is right, which may not necessarily be right. So again, education is key across the band in terms of going Tesla, going ID3. You need to do your research in the market, make sure you're at the right dealerships and they're giving you the right information. It's very, very important.
It's a bad idea if you turn up to a dealership and you know more than a dealership about electric cars. Okay, so if you sit there and you ask a question and they don't have an answer, walk out. They should know. If they're going to sell you an electric car, they're going to sell you a €50,000 car, or a 60 or a 70 or whatever you're spending. Audi e-tron, 80 grand, okay? If they can't answer those questions for you, you take your business somewhere else. It's your money. Don't be caught into it. Don't get caught in the whole route. If they're not the expert behind that counter, they should know more than you. It's their job to know it. Not my job, by the way. I don't sell cars.
Okay, I'm conscious of the time, folks, and as I said, we will get to as many questions as we possibly can. We'll still be on hand afterwards to answer remaining questions, so do come to us. The last question is, what are the typical maintenance savings you can expect from an EV?
If you look at Nissan Leaf, the major service on Nissan Leaf is more expensive than a service on a Nissan Micra. Okay, so it's €169 for a service on Nissan Leaf. I don't know exactly what they're servicing. There's not a whole lot of moving parts in an electric car. They're not whipping out the oil or anything. There's no oil in it. They're doing a check on the computer. So the service cost is kind of similar, but there's less of them. So you don't have to service them once a year, and even the smaller service is a bit cheaper. But that's only if you go to main dealers. If you're buying a used car, it could actually end up being more reasonably priced. But the stuff underneath, the braking system, the suspension system, all that sort of stuff, are identical to normal cars. Basically the same price. So center brake pads, they're a little bit different looking and they operate a little bit differently, but essentially it's the same sort of parts.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of savings to be done when you're driving an EV in versus to your petrol or diesel cars. So if you think about a smart EV driver, okay, you have the likes of regeneration and stuff like that. So in terms of using your brake pads and stuff like that, you should be able to get more longevity out of the likes of brake pads. I'd advise people as well to shop around in terms of pricing, in terms of service costs. When you look at it now, main dealerships, where are they going to get their revenue from? They're not going to be selling you the oil, they're not going to be doing the services. So I've seen it across, I've seen it, I won't say brands, but we looked at prices, and the variance, you could be talking from €50 for a service up to €150 in other dealers. I'll be shopping around in terms of looking at my service costs, because dealers have to reinvent themselves, main dealers, in terms of the servicing side of the business. So whether that is, like Bob was saying earlier, do companies go down the likes of selling the energy, that's what Volkswagen seem to be doing, or how else? So they're going to be reinventing themselves as well. So what you need to do is look at, when you're buying a car, what is going to be my outlay in terms of costs over the next 12, 24, 36 months, and have them in your head visually and see where you're going to go. And then when you're visiting dealerships, ask for a full breakdown of what has changed, because I think there's 170, 180 moving parts in a normal petrol diesel car. Could be down to 40 or 50 in the likes of an EV, so it should be less costs in terms of running and maintenance costs as well. So definitely shop around. If you're driving an EV, shop around.
Okay, folks, we're at 6 o'clock, so that's going to bring us to a close. I want to thank you all for coming today. I hope you have gained some information which will help you on your journey to decide whether an EV is for you or not. We're going to wrap it up. Please do stick around, please come and talk to us, and we'll all be here for the next 12. Thank you very much.
Yo gang, that's it. We're done. That was good, huh? Really enjoyed that. You're very good. There's still, oh my God, there's still so many of you watching. I'm sorry if I missed any of your super chats or PayPals or any sort of stuff today. It's been flat out. You've seen it for yourself. Hopefully you've enjoyed this today. I had a ball here today. It's still going to go on a little while if people are hanging around, but I've had a ball here today. I really enjoyed that. Thank you very much. Sunday service is back next week as per normal, whatever next Sunday is, 2 p.m. right here on this YouTube channel. So thank you very much for watching. And until the next time, I will see you on the